All right, we should be good to go. Just gotta sync up the TikTok chat. Okay, I think that we're all set. We are a little bit early. Well, a little bit early for the announced time. Howdy, howdy. It's not 9 for sure. That's true. I had to finish. I didn't record the video that I posted this morning last night, so I had to record it and then edit it, and you know, so I had to get that done before I could go live stream today. I woke up a little bit late today too. Howdy, howdy. I hope everybody's having a good whatever today is, Wednesday. Get some questions going. How are you doing this morning? I'm doing better. Feel okay. I think you work too hard? Nah. You think PhD is worth it? You don't do a PhD for the money, I'll tell you that much, but you do it for the love of the game. From Nectu with the $6.66, just wanted to say welcome back and thanks for the live stream as always. Well, I appreciate that. I was only gone for a day though. Why is the unit called horsepower if horses produce more than one? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. What do you think about loop quantum gravity? So I don't know a lot about it, but I have read a fairly long review of it, and after finishing the review, I found it pretty compelling. However, take this with a grain of salt because the author of the review is a proponent of loop quantum gravity, so of course they're going to present it in its best light. Why aren't you cutting redwoods on your second monitor? Good question. What do you think about Boltzmann brains? Likely with the entropy? So I think that if you have a theory that makes the prediction that Boltzmann brains are way more likely than a real, you know, real structure, then you should probably throw that theory away. What are Feynman diagrams used for and why does it look the way it does? So, I mean, it's a diagram, so like it's going to look like a diagram, but what they're used for is they're used for basically kind of providing a structured way of thinking about the terms that contribute when you're calculating a probability in quantum field theory. So there's a whole bunch of different terms that are going to contribute. It's like, think of like a Taylor series expansion. There's a whole bunch of different terms. And what the Feynman diagrams do is they kind of give you a straightforward way to figure out what each term should look like. Can you talk about the end of the universe in Roger Penrose's CCC? There is no end of the universe. It just starts over after we've reached sufficiently close to heat death. What are a couple things a layperson can learn to refute fools? How to Google competently, and how to tell a good source from a bad source. Why does resistance exist if energy is conserved? Resistance? You mean like electrical resistance? So electrical resistance doesn't violate energy conservation. It just transforms electrical energy into thermal energy. When do you think we will be able to use antimatter-powered vehicles to colonize star systems? I'm not sure if we will ever be able to do that, because antimatter seems really, really impractical. Why can't we go smaller than the Planck distance? We can't even go to the Planck distance. We don't have good enough tech. But practically speaking, the reason why it's probably impossible to probe anything smaller than the Planck distance is because the energy required to probe such a distance would make that region a black hole, and then you couldn't see inside of it. What do you think about Einstein's general theory of relativity? It's beautiful. It's probably the most beautiful theory of modern physics that we have. Are you reading pre-made questions or things in chat? These are questions in chat. What do you think of the philosopher's claim, quote, science tells us what stuff does, but not what stuff is? Yeah, that's probably true. But we don't have access to what is, so... What core courses do you recommend for the last year of the Bachelor? It depends on what degree you're getting. What physics settings should I use in games that have that option? Oh, okay, that doesn't seem like a related question. Do fish see water? Probably in the same way that we see air. What other things in cosmology are hinged on the lambda CDM model being correct? I mean, like the age of the universe. If the lambda CDM model needs some tweaking, then the age of the universe will probably get some tweaking as well. What is the strongest evidence that the Earth is round? The photographs. Sorry, I need to go close the door. Is it possible for me to send you my theory and for you to be brutally honest? No, I don't read theories. I have a policy, a blanket policy against that, unless it's like they're published somewhere, unless they're like in journals. We going to have a manned moon base anytime in the next 50 years? I don't know. I guess if it's a priority, probably. Theoretically, if a sound could be produced loud enough, could it produce a black hole? Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that Sagittarius A star might be a big dark matter blob? I've heard of this. I haven't looked too deeply into it, so I don't have any well-developed thoughts, but it seems like the blob would have to be a lot like a black hole, if only because the stars moving around it move so quickly that it seems like they should be a black hole. Also, I'm pretty sure that... No, actually, we have imaging of Sagittarius A star now. Imaging of the... what's it called? The accretion disk. So I don't see how a big dark matter blob could have an accretion disk. Do you not have enough proof for God, or do you reject God because it's cruel? I generally take the view that there's not very compelling arguments for the existence of God, and I've heard fairly compelling arguments against the existence of God. Can you explain higher dimensions and how it relates to quantum entanglement? We have really no evidence that higher dimensions are related to quantum entanglement. We don't even have evidence that there are higher dimensions for that matter. How do we know that protons don't decay? Well, we've looked, and they haven't. They might decay, they might just take a really, really long time. What do you think of Dr. Moriarty from 60 Symbols? I don't know a lot about him, so I don't have a well-developed opinion. You're just talking pseudoscience, all vision of reality is flat, you're not a physicist. Oh, I am a physicist, that's what my PhD says, but also, all vision of reality is flat? Well, tell that to the people who've taken photos of the curvature of the Earth. How far-fetched is it for another society to already have a Dyson sphere? So Dyson spheres probably can't work, but Dyson swarms, they probably could. And, you know, that's plausible. What's your opinion on supersymmetry? You think it's been a waste of time in clever minds or not? I don't think it's been a waste of time. It was a good idea. It just turns out that our universe doesn't always agree with every good idea that we have. Can you explain how black holes form in technical terms? Yeah. I mean, it's basically you have something big, and for whatever reason, whether it's via direct collapse or via supernova or whatever, you have a lot of matter that's in a fairly small region, and that matter collapses until the matter occupies less space than the equivalent black hole with the same amount of mass would occupy. At that point, it's become a black hole. Asserting that there is definitely life in the universe is not a logical conclusion that can be made, correct? It's logical in the sense that there's a high probability that it's the case, but it's not like deductively true. Do you think TQFT is going to be important in the next big discovery in high energy physics? I kind of suspect not, but could be. How can we prove that dark matter exists? Well, in some sense we already have. Like we have indirect observational evidence for it. We see matter, we see gravity where there shouldn't be gravity based off of what we can see. So there's gravity where there isn't matter that we can see, hence dark matter. But like it would be really, really good if we could just detect a dark matter particle at some point. I should jump down to the bottom because I'm way behind. I got a Dyson sphere, but it was $700 and I have to clean the filter too often. Yeah, it's really a bummer. What's the best textbook on QFT? I think I used Z's textbook, which, what's it called? What is that textbook called? I think it's called Quantum Field Theory in a Nutshell. That one was good for me. I used that when I was a grad student. But, I mean, there are other ones that are kind of more canonical, like you have Weinberg, which is really, really good, obviously. What else is typically used? I wouldn't say Weinberg is a good place to start. Let's put it that way. Why do physicists think they're incredibly smart when all they really do is come up with theories? Well, that's just not what physicists do. Theoretical physicists often do that, but there's a whole branch of physicists called experimental physicists where they conduct experiments to test ideas. And in fact, there are more of them than there are theoretical physicists. Wouldn't a Dyson sphere just cover the sunshine and it'd be night on Earth forever? Yeah, that's exactly the point. That'd be bad. Not trying to be mean, but you're not a physicist unless you do it as your profession. Good thing I do it as my profession. I literally just had a paper accepted yesterday, or a paper tentatively accepted with minor revision. Like I do it. That's like I'm actively publishing. Considering your scientific knowledge, do you believe life was created by a higher mind or by chance? I don't think it was created by a higher mind. Is it the case that most of the energy released in a supernova comes out as neutrinos? I think I read somewhere that it's like 50%, but I'm not an astrophysicist, so you'd have to ask them. How did early time-space... I don't know why people write time-space. It's definitely space-time. How did early space-time exceed the universal speed limit of life at one time? Speed limit of light at one time. The expansion of the universe isn't really restricted by the speed of light. Where does the spin of a proton come from? Urgent, please. Writing dissertation. Well, gluons and quarks, right? Hamilton or Lagrange? I prefer Lagrange. It's easier to make Lagrangian mechanics covariant. No plans of pursuing astrophysics? I'm just not an astrophysicist. I'm a physicist. Could you explain why black body radiation broke classical physics? Yeah, so if you assume classical physics, then what you would expect is that the amount of energy density outputted from a black body spectrum at very, very high wavelengths diverges. This is the Wien law, I think. Wien's displacement law. No, it's not Wien's displacement law. It's the other one. There were like basically two laws that were kind of used in different regimes. I can't remember what the other one is. The Rayleigh-Jeans law, that's what it is. The Rayleigh, if you assume that the universe is classical, then the Rayleigh-Jeans law is what you would expect for the black body radiation produced by you know, a hot object, and the Rayleigh-Jeans law just diverges. Like, it just doesn't make sense at high temperatures, or sorry, at high frequencies. How do we have we seen gravitons? No, we haven't seen gravitons. From Demtro with the $20. Thank you so much, Demtro. Saw a curling video. The sheet is formed like pebbles, and pebbles reform after sweeping. This could be why stones curl different on the same path. Could Earth rotation impact the curl? Curious to see if curling works at the equator. So no, the Coriolis effect is having no effect on the curling rate. Secondly, I'm aware that sweeping is used to, you know, basically clean up the ice sheet between curls, and that's one of the reasons that they do it. But the reason, but this doesn't resolve the issue of the scratch, what was it called? The scratch tracking? The groove tracking explanation, because they tested this experimentally, and even when there were grooves in front of the rock, the rock still didn't zigzag. They tested this experimentally without sweeping. So that can't be the sole explanation for why they deviate. Or maybe there's an explanation for why they wouldn't deviate if you have, like, you know, previous stones scratching the surface or something like this. Are superconductors only possible at really low temperatures? Well, as it stands, all of the superconductors we have are at low temperatures. However, that doesn't mean that it's like impossible. We just haven't made them yet. Where can I read? Ooh, what was your paper on? Well, so the paper was on, it was a no-go theorem for a specific type of object, but if I told you the paper or if I told you where you could read it, then you could find my true full name, and I don't want that. What are your thoughts on non-local consciousness? I'm not convinced. Let's jump down to the bottom because I'm a bit behind. Sorry about that. If I missed your question, apologies. Why Newton's law of gravitation cannot be proved, only verified? Why current is scalar? It has a direction. Current isn't scalar. It does have a direction. It's just typically we assume the direction is in the direction of the, like we assume that the conductor that the current is traveling in is in the direction of the wire. That's just like a convenient convention. Newton's law of gravitation, as with all laws, as with all theories, they can never be proved. This is how we do science. We have a hypothesis, we have a theory, we have a law, we have a model, whatever it might be, and we just test it over and over again. And every time we get evidence, every time we run an experiment that agrees with the theory, that's verification. But you can't prove it, right? You can't deductively prove it. From Mike Angel with the $5, if our universe really the experience of being in a black hole, would spaghettification explain what we've observed as expansion? Our universe doesn't really match what we would expect it to match if our universe wasn't a black hole. And spaghettification really wouldn't explain what we've observed as expansion, no. Could dark matter not be explained by modified gravity instead of particles? It could be, but the most the most modern versions of modified gravity do still include some amount of dark matter, just less than what non-modified gravity theories have. At a particle level, do we know why objects reflect a color while absorbing others? Yeah, basically, this is a result of, well, so it's not at an individual particle level because reflection and absorption is not really a thing that happens at the individual particle level for giving a thing its colors, but it is at the level of like the quantum states of a many body system of many particles, like many atoms. And yeah, we definitely do have a good understanding of this. It involves things like the valence band, the conduction band, the gaps between them, the energy levels between them, the degeneracies, and so on. I actually made a video talking about this to some extent on why gold is gold. Can't prove it means it's fake. Well, that's not how any of this works. Is spacetime fundamental or emergent from quantum information? I don't think that quantum information is like a thing. I think it's like conceptual, but I think that it's possible that spacetime is indeed emergent from entanglement, from like multiple things being entangled. That's possible. Does there need to be a particle for gravity to work like we think? Can it just be inherent? There doesn't need to be, but there probably is. Get down to the bottom. Do you tutor chem? I don't. Why don't you want people to know your real identity? Because I get death threats, and I'd rather those death threats stay confined to my social media presence and not spread to my real life and to my family. Like, that seems super reasonable. Don't you think that the search for dark matter as matter resembles the ether argument? Not really. I mean, we have observational evidence that it exists. How long do you see yourself doing research? As long as I can. Is there life out there on other planets? Probably, but that's just a statistical argument. It's not proof. The problem of induction matters in physics. Mildly, nobody really worries about it. Is it true that we cannot directly measure the one-way speed of light? Yeah, at least in special relativity. I haven't, like in principle, one could do this in general relativity, but I haven't seen a good formulation for how one could do it in GR. What's your beef with chem and organic chemist? I don't have a beef with chem. I just don't know chem. Read My Big Toe by T. Campbell. Woo, but interesting. I've skimmed through it. It's wholly uninteresting, and it's not a theory of everything if it doesn't have a single equation in the book, which it doesn't. Carl Sagan once said, "Do you want to know what it looks like inside a black hole?" Then he said, "Just look around you." Well, he was wrong. What's your take on the RBW model? I'm not familiar with it. How do you explain neutrinos moving faster than the speed of light? They don't. They don't. You generally get death threats. Those people need some help. Yes. People who have very, very, very strongly held beliefs and are belligerent often will send death threats because they're really mad at you if you're debating something that they disagree with. Is doing a PhD in physics dead as no more frequent discoveries are happening as the last century? If you don't think that frequent discoveries are happening like in the last century, then you just haven't paid attention to physics. Physics is not dead, not in the slightest. You know how objects need energy to move? Where is the energy from gravity coming from? It's a similar, you could ask the same question about where is the energy for electromagnetism coming from. Basically, by existing with matter, or by existing with mass, there is a potential energy associated with it. So anything that has mass has a potential energy associated in the field around it. Similarly, if a thing has an electric charge, there's potential energy, or there's a potential field around it. How early in your university studies did you start doing research? It was the summer after freshman year, but I was doing other things. I wasn't doing the stuff that I'm working with these days. Why are all the questions on TikTok so banal? I don't know. What is your take on quantum gravity? My take is that I suspect it's not string theory. I don't know if it's loop quantum gravity. I suspect that we'll need like a genuine paradigm shift. Why is there a terminal velocity for skydiving? If they accelerate due to gravity, why doesn't the speed increase? Right, so what happens is that you have the pull of gravity, which is essentially constant as you fall. It's essentially a constant force downwards. But as your speed increases, the drag force, the wind pushing up on you, that force increases with your speed. And so eventually, you'll fall fast enough that the drag force will exactly cancel out the gravitational force. And at that point, then you have terminal velocity. What do you think about doing computational electromagnetism as an undergraduate project? Is it a good idea and is valuable for jobs? Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I did something similar as an undergrad. How is the antiparticle of a graviton itself? Well, the antiparticle of a photon is a photon itself. Some particles are their own antiparticles. Have physicists stopped discussing the ether? Yeah, it's been like 100 years since physicists have been discussing the ether. Do you accept the view of a block universe? Yeah, that seems plausible. It seems most consistent with relativity. Do tachyons move faster than C and have they been measured? Tachyons probably don't exist as particles. Do we know whether or not anything that's ever crossed an event horizon has ever reached singularity? Yeah, so for anything that is falling into a black hole, they will reach the singularity in a finite amount of time. My 11-year-old wants to be a physicist. Any advice? Get good grades. And if you actually want to be a physicist, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you shoot as high as you plausibly can right from the get-go. So there's this phenomenon in academia where it's very hard to go down in rank. Sorry, it's very easy to slip in rank, to slip in prestige. It's very hard, unless you're like Einstein, to increase in prestige as your career continues. So if you go to Harvard or MIT as an undergraduate, then you'll have a much easier time getting into a grad school of equal or lesser caliber. And then once you're in grad school, let's say you're in grad school at a large state university, or maybe you go to grad school at like Princeton. Well, Princeton's really, really excellent. Let's say you go to grad school at like Columbia, right? If you go to grad school at Columbia, once you finish your PhD, you'll have a much easier time going into an equal or lesser prestige university for your next postdoc. And so it's for most people, what they will do, unless you're the cream of the crop, what you'll find is that you'll have people start off at very, very high prestige universities. And then by the time they get tenure, they're at like a middle tier university or something like this, because it's easier generally just to filter downwards. On the other hand, if you start at like a no-name state school or whatever, you'll have a hard time climbing up. And so by the time you finish your PhD, you'll do your PhD at some like no-name school. You'll have a hard time getting a postdoc. And if you do get a postdoc, it'll be at like a smaller school, and then you'll have a hard time getting a faculty position and so on. So it's generally better to shoot really, really high, really, really early. Blitz, how come you never address or debunk my videos? Because they don't go viral. Because nobody's watching your videos to begin with. Do you ever forget certain concepts in physics, like things you haven't seen in a while? Yeah, sure. I've heard you say things like quantum information isn't an existing thing and that energy isn't a substance. What are the substantial things in your view? Stuff, like electrons. Electrons seem like stuff. Protons seem like stuff. Is spacetime fundamental or emergent? I'm pretty on the fence about it. Did physics have use of Banach space or straight to Hilbert space? Yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, physicists definitely use Banach spaces. And because I believe that a Fock space is a type of Banach space, and we use Fock spaces all the time in quantum field theory. I'm an engineering student. Will doing research projects still be a good thing? Mostly simulations? Yeah, it depends on what you want to do, but it's rarely a bad thing to do research. Are Australian universities you think are any Australian universities you think are good for physics? I'm not familiar with the universities in Australia, so. Is there a way to learn about the renormalization group without learning QFT, just the math? No, not really. If you had to pick one quantum gravity theory that could be true, what would it be? I don't think it's any of the ones that we've come up with yet. Can you please elaborate on the concept of singularity being a point in time rather than a point in space? So it just depends on the type of singularity. The singularity at the center of a non-rotating black hole, if it exists, which it probably doesn't, but if it exists, like in like the ideal setting of a non-rotating black hole with a genuine singularity in it, that singularity is a so-called space-like singularity, which means it behaves like a moment in time. On the other hand, for a singularity in like an idealized rotating black hole, that singularity is a time-like singularity, which means that it's more like a place. It's just singularities can take on different characteristics. With time dilation, is the size of the universe based on the speed you were traveling? To an extent, yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention, I do have to cut the live stream a little bit short today. I have a meeting at 11, which is in about an hour. So, did becoming a physicist push you to becoming an atheist? No, completely unrelated. Thoughts on string theory? I think it's a beautiful theory, and I think it's a correct theory of gravity, just not for our universe. Why does Niels Bohr's simple atom model begin to fail after 4 periods? Well, because they would radiate away, the electrons would radiate away energy, and so they would eventually fall into the nucleus. How do you reconcile the 120 order of magnitude discrepancy between the theoretical vacuum energy density predicted by quantum field theory and the much smaller value observed in cosmology? So first of all, the 120 orders of magnitude thing, that's like a naive calculation from, I guess, like the 80s or something. Modern calculations put it at about 55 orders of magnitude, but that's still enormous. My suspicion is that there's kind of 2 roads that you could take, both of which remove this as an issue. The first is that there is a cosmological constant, but it's not a result of the vacuum energy density from quantum field theory. This is to say vacuum energy densities are always relative to some kind of assumed zero, but the energy densities in space-time are absolute. So it's possible that the vacuum energy density is just 0. It's just actually 0. We've just assumed the wrong ground level, basically, or the wrong ground state. Like the absolute energy of the vacuum energy density might just be 0, and we have a cosmological constant for reasons that you can have a cosmological constant, which is not sourced by any matter fields or anything. The second is, I actually don't think that there is a cosmological constant. I think that it's probably a dynamical field, in which case it would have absolutely nothing to do with the vacuum energy density from QFT. Why can light not escape a black hole? Its gravity is too big. Again, he's not actually a physicist unless he actually does it for a profession. I do it for a profession. I have a university affiliation and everything. I'm published in physics and mathematics. Do you still research? Yeah. Know when you work with believes in God? Amazing. I don't know the religious beliefs of the people I work with. Are you on the West Coast? I'm not on a coast, but I'm in the west side of the United States, yeah. If a black hole singularity doesn't exist, then what happens to the collapsing star in the black hole? It keeps collapsing forever? I can imagine that it probably stabilizes at some other kind of matter, some other kind of denser matter that we just aren't familiar with yet, because it's, you know, beyond our level of technology to make it, to produce it. From Demtro with the $2, all hail the lava lamp. Honor Lavaticus. Indeed. As the emissary of the lamp, I bless you. If two black holes collide, can you get a tunnel? A tunnel to where? Stop acting like a physicist, you're a YouTuber? Do you think I spend like 8 hours a day doing YouTube? Do you think that it, like, you know that this is like a thing that I spend a bit of my time on every day, but anyway. Antimatter, was there enough in the original universe to produce entire stars made of antimatter? We have no idea. It seems like there was really basically no antimatter in the original universe, or in the early universe, which is very confusing, and we don't know why. If gravity didn't exist, would you believe in the flat earth theory? Not necessarily. We would still need some explanation for why things fall. Can dark matter affect us? Almost certainly not. What's your publications in mathematics? I just know your physics stuff. I do stuff in conformal geometry. What's your take on the recent physics paper by Harvard and OpenAI? I skimmed it over. I think, what was it? Andrew Strominger was involved with it, I think, which is interesting. I don't think that they were doing anything particularly deep. They basically used OpenAI to do some pattern matching, but has anyone seriously explored the idea that dimensionality could increase over cosmic time? Yes, I have seen claims. I have seen investigations into that. Do you think research is in a bad spot nowadays? I'm a biomedical engineering student. I'd love to get a PhD and work in uni or R&D, but I'm really afraid I wouldn't make it financially here in Italy. So outside of the, I mean, generally speaking, academic researchers just don't get paid a lot. That's just the reality of it. But you'd usually get paid enough to get by. Do you know Brian Cox? No, not personally. Are you really 6'7"? I'm actually 7'4". How do you think AI would affect physics professions in the next few decades? It's impossible to predict, I think. What's the physics telling you the singularity probably doesn't exist? It's more of like an inductive thing. So, you know, if you took classical electromagnetism seriously, what you would have found is that, like, from like Maxwell's electromagnetism from the late 1800s, what you would have found is that there is a singularity at like an electromagnetic singularity at point charges, which is what electrons are. But what we found out later is that once you realize that electrons are quantum mechanical objects and you can quantize the electromagnetic field, that singularity disappears. And general relativity, the thing that predicts gravitational singularities, is also a classical theory. Like, it's not quantum, it's a classical theory. And so I suspect the appearance of singularities in general relativity are appearing for similar reasons that they would have appeared in classical electromagnetism. That is, whenever a singularity pops up, usually it's just a sign that you need to revise your theory. From Bacon and Bush with the $20, thank you so much. Just for another Ask a Physicist, I heard Sean Carroll say something interesting about the weak force and wanted to ask you about it, but I'll be damned if I can remember what it was. Well, you can always just message me on Discord. Most ridiculous scene in an Ant-Man physics-wise? Oh, I mean, the whole movie, right? How hard did basketball coaches try to get you to play basketball? Oh, they didn't. Not athletic enough. If dark matter does exist, what other matter would it portray? I always think of dark matter as an excuse for the unknown. Well, look, dark matter is the name we give for some unknown matter source that has mass but doesn't interact with other stuff. So it's not an excuse for the unknown. It's just a label for something that we know is there, but we don't know what it is. Is there dark antimatter? It's plausible. You have a Discord? Indeed, I do. In fact, this is a good time to shill for it. If you're 18 years or older, you can go to my Discord by just typing in discord.gg/drblitz. Just Dr. Blitz. Just type that in. Join the Discord server. It's a really cool place for people to ask questions, to get announcements for my YouTube videos and my TikTok videos. And when I'm doing live streams, it's a cool place to be. And you can ask me questions, talk with like-minded people, etc. Being a physicist, does that mean you cover all the physics fields? No, absolutely not. If time may not exist, how would that even work? Well, look, time could exist in an emergent sense, in that it's like a large scale it's a, you know, a large scale property that emerges from fundamentally timeless phenomena. What do you think about the whole falsifiability problem of string theory? Well, people are working on it, right? Are field excitations more fundamental general than stuff? I take it that the field excitations are the stuff. What do you think is beyond the observable universe? Probably just more universe. That's my guess. Do you use AI in your research, especially LLMs? A bit. So typically what will happen, at least it really depends on the project I'm working on, but often I will use an LLM, like the plus version of ChatGPT or something, to kind of work out the very, very rough details of, or work out the feasibility of an idea I have. One of the things that takes the longest in like the traditional way of doing research is you have an idea and you have to go spend weeks or months trying to figure out if this idea is even feasible, or if it's already been written about, or if like the conclusions are plausible, those kinds of things. What ChatGPT is really good for, what I found, is that it's really good for it's really good for helping me figure out in like a few days whether or not this research direction that I'm considering is like could even plausibly work. And once it can, then I'll just use it for like reference hunting and stuff like that. But aside from that, I don't think it's particularly good for doing calculations. I don't think it's particularly good for actually doing the independent thought that's required for research. If it doesn't interact, why do some models have interacting couplings? Well, so dark matter might interact weakly via the weak nuclear force. This would be a weakly interacting massive particle. So it just depends on the model that you're talking about. But it doesn't interact electromagnetically. That's the important part. Is spacetime fundamentally continuous or discrete? That we don't know. I'm pretty agnostic about the issue myself. If dimensionality did increase over cosmic time, as I asked, would we expect any observable signatures today? I'd have to go look at the research on it. I haven't written any papers on it, and I haven't read any papers on it. I've skimmed some papers that talk about it, and I just never really found them particularly compelling, so I just didn't continue reading them. How do we know space is expanding if we can't know or comprehend a lack of the fabric of space? I don't know why we can't know or comprehend a lack of the fabric of space. I don't know what that would mean. Can we not see dark matter because it could be beyond our dimension, or would it not interact at all? Well, look, it could just be a particle that just doesn't interact with the electromagnetic force, right? And then we couldn't see it. What's the recent discovery about single minus gluon tree amplitudes are non-zero? It's like a particle physics thing, and I'm not so involved in that. So I skimmed through it. It doesn't seem that like super deep to me. Are you currently working on anything interesting? Yeah, but if I told you, then the ideas would get out. Any proof of a third star in the Sirius star system? Some believe there's a third object. I don't know. I haven't heard about this. So if two black holes collide, is the middle point of collision is the Big Bang? No, they just merge. Does the block universe mean my past self is still alive? No, the block universe just means that all moments of time are equally realized. They're just as real as each other, but it doesn't mean that they're all happening now. Now is a time word. What's your favorite subatomic particle? Quantum particle? My favorite subatomic particle is probably like, I don't know. The Higgs boson's really nice. Leptons are really cool. Let's skip down to the bottom so I don't miss any questions. How does the sun create darkness on a flat Earth if it's always floating above the surface? You ask them. Who knows? Who do you think does more and better research, agnostic physicist or believer physicist? I don't think that there's any relation, is my guess. I suspect that you probably couldn't. Also, it's really hard to quantify like how good research is. What's your field of physics? I do stuff that involves gravity, generally. If it involves gravity, it's probably interesting to me. Not you choosing the God particle. It's not the God particle. It's the goddamn particle. Can you explain why impossible to have real dragon base? I don't know what that question means. What's your favorite Lie group? I really like SO42. How does the philosopher assist in understanding quantum field theory? I'm not sure that they do. Like, honestly, I'm just not sure that they do. What do you think about medical physics? I want to go into this career after high school. It's probably a good career to go into. Like, I imagine that you can make pretty good money and you still get to solve interesting problems. Please tell me what gravity actually is. Well, look, our current best models of gravity is that gravity is the curvature of spacetime. And so what we think of as gravity is just objects following straight paths through a curved spacetime. When I become a physicist without uni, you will have a very hard time doing so. On my earlier question about dimensionality evolving over cosmic time, do you think the idea itself is weak or just the way it's currently formulated in literature? I just haven't seen anything that piqued my interest. I've always wondered, in what situation is it called centrifugal force, or is it just misnamed? Why? Yeah, so there are two different things happening. So a centripetal force is any force that pulls you in a direction towards the center of something. That's what a centripetal force is. So like gravity is a centripetal force. A spring, maybe not a spring. Centripetal means center seeking. So the force is drawing you towards the center. Centrifugal force is the inertial force that an object in a non-inertial reference frame experiences. At least it's one of the inertial forces. It's the force that tries to fling you out, or it's the force that you feel that feels like you're trying to be flung out away from the center. So centrifugal means center fleeing. And so centrifugal force it's an inertial force, because what's really happening is that from a non-rotating point of view, you're just trying to go in a straight line as per Newton's first law. But there's something pulling you in a circle, so you feel like you're trying to go in a straight. You feel like there's something pulling you away because you're trying to go in a straight line, despite you moving in a circle. Okay, one of these days I'm going to figure out why some live tabs are horizontal live streams and some are vertical, despite being the same channel. Yeah, so I have two channels. One is for vertical live streams and the other is for horizontal live streams. The @Blitz PhD channel is for vertical live streams and for all of my science content. And the @Dr. Blitz Debunks channel on YouTube is for horizontal live streams. That is for, it's for horizontal live streams and debunking content. So like clips from debates or like shorts that are debunking some other video. That's where that content goes. But if you haven't subscribed on both on YouTube, make sure to go do it. Go subscribe to @BlitzPhD on YouTube and go subscribe to @Dr. Blitz Debunks on YouTube. Trying to grow both channels so that we can make this more, TikTok is very unreliable as far as finances go. So if we can make YouTube more reliable, that'd be good. What are your thoughts on string theory as a mathematical physicist? I kind of want to pursue both to learn string theory. String theory is beautiful. It's probably, in my view, it's probably not the right theory that describes our universe. Scroll down to the bottom so I don't miss anything. Why do you agree with Einstein's law of relativity? Because it stands up to experimental tests over and over and over again. What would make a dimensional evolution model compelling in your view? If they present a good model and it makes good predictions, or if it's particularly mathematically elegant or whatever it might be. Can objects travel in a perfect vacuum forever? I've heard that's not true. So in an expanding universe, it's not true. In a static universe, it can. Why does gauge invariance require the existence of a massless spin 1 particle? So, sorry, just got a notification. So gauge invariance is this idea that you can not only change the shape of the electromagnetic field globally by a certain amount, but you can change it locally. And this is observed via, how do I want to say this? This is observed via quantum, or via Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations. Now the thing is if you then want to quantize that, and you want your quantum dynamics to respect that transformation, then you have to change your derivative a little bit. And that derivative, well, a covariant derivative is a one form, or rather it maps you know, scalars to one forms and vector valued fields to vector valued one forms and so on. And so that means that you have to modify your derivative by something that looks like a one form. And that's what a massless spin one, or that's what a spin one particle is. Now, why it's massless is because generally these particles don't have mass unless they get it for some other reason. Are we getting closer to manipulating gravitational waves? Not in any sort of useful way. Have you considered using Space Engine in flat Earth debates? It's really good to show stuff. I think I have Space Engine. I haven't thought about using it, but maybe I should. Why is gravity about 10 to the 38 times weaker than the electromagnetic force? Good question. We don't know. What, in your opinion, is the best way to study physics? Do practice problems. And then watch videos of other people solving practice problems. Any thoughts on TikTok philosophy bros claiming consciousness is more fundamental than physical? I don't think they're right. Any thoughts about the LISA gravitational wave detector? I hope they build it, and I hope it does great work. What jobs can you get with your degree? You can get lots of jobs with a physics PhD, but often it's less about what your degree is and more about what skills you have. What's your opinion of Bob Lazar? That he's a hack. What would the Earth's diameter have to be to see like a 2-degree curve with the naked eye? Oh, I don't know. You could probably compute this, but it'd have to be very, very small. When are you going to stop denying evidence because of your atheistic psychological issues? Bob, when are you going to stop denying evidence because of your theistic psychological issues? How would you react if it seriously turned out that all of the mountains of evidence were fake and Earth really is flat? Obviously not true, but imagine. Oh, I don't know. I probably wouldn't react well. Do you care about most physical locations of things or the math behind it? I don't know what that means. Do you listen to music? Yeah. Is space-time a substance? Hard to say. Definitely feels like one. Is there a practice problem site like for Go or calculus? That I don't know. Usually you can find practice problems in textbooks though. What made you get PhD in theoretical physics? Because I wanted to do it since I was a kid. From Bacon and Bush with the $10. How would a graviton be caused? I understand it as something like energy from acceleration, poorly asked as per usual. Yeah, so in the same way that a photon is caused when you have an object accelerating, a graviton would be caused in the same way. If you have an object that is, say, orbiting another object, or if you have an object that is, say, you know, just jiggling back and forth or whatever, that would emit gravitons. Is the Unruh effect testable in any way? Some people have claimed that it is. I'm not sure. It seems like it's really, really hard to test at this point in time. I know GR states that gravitation is the curvature of space-time, but what is space-time itself made of? What exactly is being curved to cause gravity? Look, so in physics, either there is not a bottom and everything is made of something smaller, or there is a bottom and at a certain point, there's just a thing that isn't made of something smaller. If GR is correct and space-time is fundamental, then space-time isn't made of anything. It's just a thing. It's just a thing that is itself fundamental and can have certain properties. By the way, the same could be said of the electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field is also, electromagnetic forces are also caused by curvatures in the electromagnetic field. Why is Bob Lazar a hack? Because, like, he's literally a fraud. He's lied about his educational background. He's lied about his career background. He makes up stuff and then people believe him for reasons unknown. Does gravity follow the inverse square law all the way to the center of a black hole, or does it become different? In strong fields, the description of gravity as like a force just doesn't hold anymore. So generally speaking, once you get sufficiently close to a black hole, whether that's inside or outside, it depends. That just, like, it's just not a good description. But why curvature R if T and Q formalism are equivalent? That's a good question. And it probably speaks to something deeper. that there's probably like some deeper underlying structure. And something else that points to this, by the way, is something that's called the whole problem. The whole problem is a problem with viewing the universe as a single space-time with a single curvature. I suspect that both of these issues are issues in the sense that there's probably something deeper. Even if it's purely classical and purely geometric, there's probably something deeper that we don't understand yet that kind of can be described in terms of T or in terms of R or what have you. From Keegan Pug with the $20. Thank you so much, Keegan. I appreciate you. If you can change one false thing in physics to be true or vice versa, what would it be? Oh, I don't know. Is quantum physics really the only field left unfinished in our understanding of it? No, not at all. What is the difference between dark energy and dark matter? How are they related? So they're probably not related. They just both have the word dark in the name. And they have the word dark in the name merely because dark is the word that was used to like signify something unknown, something that we can't directly see. So dark energy is just some unknown cause for the apparent accelerated expansion of our universe. Dark matter is just the name that we give to the kind of matter that likely exists that we can't see but has a gravitational influence. What do you think the overall shape of the universe is? I would like it to be hyperspherical because it makes a lot of the models I'm interested in more likely, but the evidence is consistent with it being flat and infinite. What are your thoughts on how many dimensions there are? Second, third. It seems like we live in a 4-dimensional spacetime. Hey Blitz, what is the electromagnetic oscillation actually? Like in a string, we know that the string goes up and down. Where does the light actually oscillate? So it oscillates in the electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field is just a thing that seems to be fundamental in our universe, and it can have different shapes, if you will. From Keegan with the $5, what are your top 5 Beast in Black songs? Ah, good question. Let's actually, I wonder if I could just pull that. So I have a new music app on my phone that might just sort them by listening, by how frequently I listen to them. Most played. That's not helpful at all. There's only 2 on the most played list. Okay, I'll just pull it up and I'll just tell you. I'll just pull up my music repository. Okay, so Power of the Beast is really, really excellent. From Hell with Love is really, really good. Sweet True Lies is really, really good. Killed by Death is hilarious, but also really good. Hardcore is probably my favorite song on the Dark Connection album. Blind and Frozen is a classic. Crazy Mad Insane is also really good. Those are probably my top songs. And I mean, they're probably objectively their best songs too. Like, I think probably everybody agrees with that if you like Beast in Black. Have you heard of the Elliott argument? Yeah, it's hilariously bad. Does this electromagnetic field get affected by other fields like spacetime? Yeah, absolutely it does. Anything that has, any field that has charge will affect the electromagnetic field. What do you think about supervoids? Do you have your own explanation on why they happen? I don't think about them a lot. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into thinking about them. What does the principle of least action actually tell us other than how the Lagrangian varies? Yeah, so the principle of least action is kind of, it's kind of tricky, right? Because if you have, at least for most theories, for most laws of physics, you can generally write down an action so that the principle of least action would reproduce those laws of physics, the equations of motion. So in some sense, the principle of least action isn't like, it's hard to say that it's actually fundamental, because we can kind of, like, if it didn't work, we could just change the Lagrangian until it did work. So it's not actually clear what it means, what it actually says. I would definitely pay to see you debate Chad Elliott. Yeah, he refuses to debate me on any sort of online platform. He wants to meet in person, and like, I'm sorry, bro, I'm not going to do that. You believe the wave function is ontic or epistemic? I lean towards ontic. Have you met Terrence Tao? I have not. I'd like to, but he's way above my pay grade. From Fatesify with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. How do you think quantum gravity will be solved? Creating a new object like string theory, tweaking our current theories like asymptotic safety, asymptotically free gravity, or wait, you mean asymptotically free gravity, right? Or something different. I suspect it'll be something different. I think that probably we need a different paradigm. How can you explain the direction of motional EMF? Lenz's law. I mean, it just follows from Maxwell's equations, right? Are there any unsolved paradoxes of GR? Unsolved paradoxes. Not that I can think of. I mean, like, I'm sure there are things that, like, we don't fully understand, like, but, like, nothing that I can think of that's, like, super obvious. Does Earth's core spin internally despite Neil Tyson's claim it does? MO, it's not. Magnetic field is caused by slow vertical radial magma currents. Well, yeah, I mean, as far as I know, as far as I've heard, indeed it is the case that the Earth's solid core does spin. Now, it spins basically with the rest of the Earth. It spins basically with the rest of the Earth, but it doesn't spin exactly with the Earth, and that's why there's this whole thing about the Earth's core slowing down and all of that business a while ago. What do you think about the holographic principle? I think it's a really, really good idea for mathematical equivalence. I don't know if it's actually true about our reality. If all motion begets motion, so everything in motion was put in motion by something else, what started all of that motion? Was there a first mover in your opinion? If it's true that all motion was put in motion by something else, then there can't be a first mover. Would you ever listen to music while solving physics problems? I mean, yeah, I listen to music all the time. Like, if I'm not watching a video and I'm working on something, like, if I'm working on, like, research stuff, or if I'm reading, like, a paper, I can't be, like, listening to a debate in the background, so I will just turn on music. How do you super chat? It's a YouTube thing. What's your opinion on writing a quantum physics paper at 18? Unsure if my age will cause issues. Well, look, your age won't cause issues, but very few 18-year-olds are familiar with the physics literature are familiar enough with the physics literature and are, you know, knowledgeable enough and, you know, experienced enough to actually come up with a genuine new piece of research at 18. So so if your paper gets rejected, it wouldn't be because of your age. It'd just be because it's likely not a good paper. And that's because 18-year-olds just don't know a whole lot, which is okay. That's the whole point of going to university, so you can learn more. The collapse of the wave function is problematic, no? I agree that it absolutely is. If an observer accelerating in space such that the temperature of the thermal bath on effect were equal to that of the CMB, could you differentiate that from the CMB, and how? Yeah, I suppose you could, right? Because looking backwards and looking forwards would have different temperatures, so you would notice a dipole moment. Why is the Hilbert space of a closed universe equal to 1? Like, is there only one state? That's at least one of the ideas for the Hilbert space. Yeah, that's at least one of the ideas, that there's only one state that a closed universe can have. It's not clear that that's, like, actually true, though. I've heard that some physicists are saying that the expansion of the universe is not uniform. Do you agree, disagree, and why? I am agnostic about it. Definitely the mainstream consensus is that the universe's expansion is uniform, but there's, you know, there's always room for investigating something that's not mainstream. What's the reality of the Aharonov-Bohm effect? It is real. It's experimentally demonstrated. Let's skip down to the bottom. Oh, by the way, now is oh, I'm getting a phone call. I'm sorry. This is actually an important phone call, likely. Okay. Sorry about that. Meanwhile, while we're taking a pause anyway, I should remind you guys that if you guys want to help support the live stream, you know, gives me good reason to keep doing this, helps me, you know, potentially at some point buy a home, because that'd be nice. Owning a home would be good. Consider becoming a member. So it's like $4 or $5 a month, and it gives you access to the emojis on YouTube. And it gives you access, a member on YouTube, I should say. It's like $4 or $5 a month, gives you access to emojis, and it gives you access to my debate notes. So if that's something you're interested in, you absolutely can consider supporting me. If not, don't worry about it. But, you know, it's an option. You can lip read. Well, okay, that's fine. I didn't say anything that I wouldn't want you guys to hear, all things considered. From Andre Mikhailovolomos, that's a very complicated last name. Can you please research Earth core slowing down? I believe it's BS. Magma is very viscous. It can't spin inertially relative to crust since birth. Look, the core of the Earth, the actual core of the Earth is solid. The outer core is liquid. Magma is like a liquid solid mix. But the core of the Earth is a solid chunk of iron and nickel. Own a home, dang goals and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, my wife has a law degree. I have a PhD, and we want to at some point settle down. So the hope is to actually like try to look for a place of our own, like a place to stay that we can own at some point in the future. So, you know, goals. It's okay to have goals. Who knows if it'll happen, but it's okay to have goals. I've determined you are in mountain time because you're 11 hours difference with Vietnam. Fair enough. If I become a member, will you apologize for exposing my stupidity? Just kidding. I would never. How does refractive index work at the quantum level? It's complicated. Basically, you can't talk about individual particles. You have to talk about the many body motions of collective quantum systems. Everyone should be able to own a home if they want, period. I agree. Quantum physics books they recommend for a non-physics student? Oh, you could read The Biggest Ideas in the Universe Volume 2. Own a home? Yeah, dude, a scientist, PhD, cool guy, and he's just like everyone else society is. Yeah, that is the world we live in, right? The world we live in is the world where, you know, there's a hope to one day own a home. From Mindos for the €2 for home. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like, look, like I make decent money, but homes are expensive. So, you know, we do our best. If you weren't in academia in physics, what do you think you'll do for your career? I don't know. I mean, in some sense, like, I'm kind of tangentially in academia. I still have a university affiliation, but almost all of my income comes from doing science communication stuff. And so, like, I do that, but I guess, like, if you're saying if I wasn't still doing research kind of thing, which I am, if I wasn't still doing research, then, like, who knows what I would be doing? I would probably have to go be like a software engineer or something. Actually, I have a friend who recently got fired because of Trump's cuts. He was at Brown University, and so he got fired last year because of the Trump cuts, basically. And so he is now working for OpenAI as an expert physicist to try to see how capable their current models are. And that pays pretty decently. I don't know if I would do that, though, because I don't know if I could. Like, look, I understand he has kids and he has, like, a family to support, so I'm not going to shame him for this, but I don't know if I'd be able to do that myself. Yeah, Brown did get hit hard. Yeah. Any theorems you want to see proven in your lifetime? I don't know. Not that I can think of. I blame Blitz's friend for the price of RAM. He just started this job recently, so it's not his fault. What if the universe is expanding because of the pressure difference of something, space-time itself? Well, it is a pressure thing, but it's internal to space-time. The FCC sent Blitz a letter demanding that he give flat Earth scientists equal time. That's hilarious. Are gamma rays the highest energy photons, or are there photons with much greater energies? So Gamma rays are basically photons that go from, you know, like a tenth of a nanometer or something to arbitrarily short wavelengths, i.e. arbitrarily high frequencies. So everything is a gamma ray once you're above a certain energy level. Why would you not work at OpenAI? It feels like I'd be training the AI or helping the AI replace physicists, which I don't like. From Bob Dylan with the $5, Dr. Blitz convinced my cat of divine hiddenness, and now it won't get out of this fucking box. It keeps asking me, am I alive in here? That's a really good question. But if the cat is asking that, you have bigger problems than Schrodinger did. Could you Kelvin freeze 118 alpha particle and eject it into someone? Theoretically, I have no idea what that question means. How would you convince someone physics is real if they don't believe in science? Oh, well, I mean, you could just show them evidence, but if they don't believe in evidence, then there's not much that you can do. What to do when you forget your girlfriend's birthday? Well, first of all, don't. Second of all, apologize profusely. Do you know of any online communities to study theoretical physics with other students? I don't. Wouldn't 4.5 billions of years halt inertial spin of Earth and viscous magma? No, not necessarily. Especially not if there's external forces, which of course there are. There's like tides and stuff. Why do we look at AC circuits with stuff like capacitors as they would have spinning vectors? Because spinning vectors are a good way to describe anything that's periodic, and AC circuits are periodic. You ever find that the more answers we have, the less life seems worth it? No. Do you think planets could be created by small black holes being their center? I don't think that planets could be created that way. At least that doesn't seem plausible to me. Like, I guess it could happen. Well, no, actually, I don't even know if it could happen. It could be the case that a small black hole could replace the core of a planet, but I don't know how it would form that way. Stack Exchange has a physics section. That's true. Stack Exchange is really good. Did you know that there's ads during your lives? Yes. I don't choose the ads, but I definitely am fine with there being ads. If you don't like the ads, use an ad blocker. But like, you know, otherwise I'm doing this for free, right? Which, like, it doesn't even cost anything to watch an ad. What are the topics of pure mathematics that are most prevalent in physics research? My guess is like anything algebraic or representation theoretic is probably pretty big. Same with PDEs. PDEs are also pretty big. As a physicist, are you more interested in discovering the external universe or better understanding what we interact with day to day? I prefer the former. There are no ads on TikTok. That's true. Yeah, or you could pay for YouTube Premium. Why do neutrinos get emitted in beta decay? Because otherwise lepton number wouldn't be conserved. Beta decay is mediated by the weak nuclear force, and so when you have the weak nuclear force, or the weak nuclear force does conserve lepton number. How can light travel in space but sound can't? Well, light travels on the electromagnetic field, which exists everywhere, but sound travels on air, or more generally on matter, and there's not necessarily a whole bunch of matter in like out there in space. All the ads I've been getting lately are those stupid ass Hollow Miracle Hunters challenge ad. I don't care about your stupid. You're getting religious ads? That's really annoying. I'm sorry to hear that. Chris Pratt wants to pray with me in my tube ads. We're like spirit besties now, I think. I'm so sorry. I'm surprised that those are the ads they're serving you. Where to find research papers? If you want papers in physics, go to archive, arxiv.org. Can you give examples for jerk, snap, crackle, and pop? Serious inquiry. I don't actually know of any physics applications for any of those. Not to say that there aren't any, but I just don't know them offhand. I know that they show up more in engineering problems. This isn't live. It sure is. Did you watch the latest Veritasium video on asbestos? I haven't watched Veritasium videos in a while. What's your thought about finding Earth-like planets in our galaxy? It seems plausible. Probably not possible yet, but it seems at least plausible in the near future. What would you recommend to aspiring theoretical physicists before they start university? Should you have certain baseline knowledge before university to even have a chance to become a researcher? You will learn the physics you need at university, but you will be taught it using mathematics. So make sure that your math skills are not, do not impede your ability to learn physics. So you should, basically what I'm saying is your math skills need to be sharp. You should be fluent in calculus, for example. What's your favorite Czech beer? I don't know if, there was one, it had a goat on the front. And that one was decent. Actually, I think that there's one, like a Czech beer called Black Mountain, I think. That's the translation. It's like, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called. It's not Radagast. Yeah, I don't remember what it was called. But I would drink Kozels. Kozels are decent. Oh, it's Kozel. Okay, yeah. So that's the one. Kozel. I like Kozel. I liked it just fine. Although I still like Stella more than Kozel. Pilsner Urquell. I don't love Pilsner Urquell. I also don't love Radagast. Radagast was super cheap though, so I would drink it when required. Staropramen. I didn't love it. I don't really like the super bitter lager, or the super bitter lagers though. They're just not for me. All right, y'all. I should probably end the live because I do have a meeting in like less than 10 minutes. So I'm gonna do that. But before I go, make sure that you consider joining the Discord server if you're 18 years or older. And I will see you guys tomorrow for some more debate stuff. So again, join the Discord server. Consider becoming a member on YouTube, $4 or $5 a month, or joining on Patreon. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.